That afternoon, when I saw my suitcase thrown on the sidewalk, with my underwear scattered among the garden stones, I felt the world stop. I still had the bandages on my chest. I could feel the gauze sticking to my skin with every breath. The surgery had been just 4 days ago. 4 days where I hadn't slept well, where every movement reminded me that my body was vulnerable, broken, trying to heal. The taxi that had brought me from the hospital was still there, the engine running. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror, uncomfortable, not knowing whether he should leave or stay. I didn't know what to do either. I held onto the car door handle, feeling my legs tremble. The afternoon sun hit me directly in the face, and the heat made the sweat mix with the tears I could no longer hold back. Then I saw her, standing in the doorway of my house. My house. The house where I had raised my children, where I had prepared thousands of meals, where I had mourned the death of my husband. There she was, with her arms crossed and a look I had never seen on her face. That house is not an assisted living facility, and I'm not a babysitter. Her voice echoed throughout the street. The neighbours came out to their windows. Mrs. Charlotte, who lived across the street, peeked out with a look of horror. I felt the shame rise up my neck, hot, heavy. My daughter-in-law. Megan. The woman who had entered my family like another daughter, whom I had welcomed with open arms, whom I had taught my grandmother's recipes, with whom I had shared entire afternoons drinking iced tea while planning my grandchildren's birthday parties. That same woman now looked at me as if I were a stranger. Worse yet, as if I were a burden. I tried to speak. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come out. The pain in my chest intensified, as if my own body was punishing me for not defending myself. My hands were shaking so much that I had to hold on to the car to keep from falling. The driver rolled down the window. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you want me to call someone?" I didn't know what to tell him. Who was I going to call? My son, Robert, was at work. My friends lived far away. My sister had died 3 years ago. I was alone, completely alone, in front of the house that had been my refuge for 40 years. Megan took a step forward, still with that hard, cold expression. "You heard me, Eleanor. I can't be taking care of you as if you were my responsibility. I have my own children, my job, my life. If you wanted someone to take care of you, you should have thought about that before." Before what? I wanted to ask her. Before I got sick? Before I needed help? Before I believed that family was something more than a name? But I stayed quiet, because at that moment I understood something terrible. The silence that I had kept for so long, thinking it was love, thinking it was patience, had actually been fear. Fear of bothering. Fear of being seen as a burden. Fear of losing my son's affection if I said what I really felt. And now, that silence had left me voiceless when I needed it most. My name is Eleanor Nelson. I am 68 years old, and at that moment, standing on the sidewalk of my own house, with my body aching and my heart shattered, I learned that there are situations in life where God pushes us to the limit, not to break us, but to show us who is truly on our side. What happened just minutes later changed everything, because sometimes, when we least expect it, justice arrives. And it doesn't always come from where we imagine. Sometimes we trust the wrong people too much. Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read them. There are days when I can still smell the brewed coffee that I used to make every morning in that house. It was my sacred ritual. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning when the sun was just beginning to peek through the kitchen curtains and put the coffee maker on the stove. Cinnamon, brown sugar, and those coffee beans I bought at Mr. Johnson's market. The aroma would fill the whole house, and it was as if it woke up not only the family, but also the memories. My husband, Michael, and I built that house more than 40 years ago, brick by brick, dream by dream. When we got married, we had nothing but love and the desire to get ahead. Michael worked at a shoe factory, double shifts, triple shifts. I sewed clothes for the neighbours, embroidered napkins, did whatever was necessary. We saved for 10 years to buy the land, and another 5 to put up the walls. I remember the day we put the last shingle on the roof. Michael carried me in his arms and crossed the threshold, as if it were our second wedding. The children ran all over the house, shouting with excitement. Robert was just 8 years old, and my daughter Lucy was 6. "Mum, is this house really ours? Is no one going to kick us out?" Robert asked me with those big eyes, full of hope. "Yes, my love, this house is ours, and here we are going to be happy forever." And we were. For many years, we were. The house filled with life, the children's birthdays, the Christmas parties, Sunday afternoons with the whole family gathered in the backyard. Michael installed a brick grill in the garden, and every weekend we would barbecue meat while the kids played football. Lucy got married in that backyard. I still keep the photos. Her in her white dress, dancing with her dad under the lights we hung in the trees. When Michael died, 12 years ago, I felt like the house had lost its soul, but my children told me not to worry, that they would always be with me. Robert, my eldest son, was already married to Megan. They had 2 young children, Sebastian and Valerie. They lived in a small apartment on the other side of the city, and one day Robert proposed something to me. "Mum, what if we move in with you? The house is big. There's room for everyone. That way you're not alone, and we can save for the future." I accepted without thinking twice. The idea of having my grandchildren running through those same halls where I had raised their parents filled my heart. I thought it would be like before. Laughter, meals together, afternoons with coffee watching the children grow up. And at first it was like that. Megan helped me in the kitchen. I taught her how to make turkey and dressing the way my mum did, with the exact touch of cream and spices. She taught me how to use the cell phone for video calls, because Lucy lived in Dallas, Texas, and that way we could talk more often. On Sundays, I would make barbecue chicken, and after eating, we would all sit in the living room to watch movies. Sebastian would curl up on my lap, and Valerie would ask me to tell her stories from when her dad was a kid. "Is it true that Grandpa chased him with a flip-flop because he broke the window playing ball?" Valerie would ask, dying of laughter. "True, and your dad ran so fast that Grandpa got tired, and in the end, they laughed together." Those moments made me feel useful. They made me feel loved. But little by little, without me realizing it, things started to change. First, it was small details. Megan no longer asked for my opinion on cooking. If I suggested something, she would smile and say, "Oh, mother-in-law, but that's not how it's done anymore." And she would do things her own way. Then she started moving my things around, the photos on the bookcase, the decorations in the living room, even the coffee maker where I made my coffee. "I need space, Eleanor. This house is full of old junk." Old junk. That's what she called the memories of my life. I tried not to get upset. I kept repeating to myself that daughters-in-law always want to put their touch on the house, that it was normal, that I should be understanding. Then she stopped telling me when they were going out. I would come home from the market and the house would be empty, without a note, without a message. Once I prepared macaroni and cheese for everyone, I was in the kitchen all day and no one came home for dinner. I ended up eating alone in front of the television, watching the food get cold on the plates. When Robert arrived that night, late, I asked him where they had been. We went out to eat with Megan's parents, Mum. It was her mum's birthday. Son, but you could have let me know. I made macaroni and cheese. Oh, Mum, don't be like that. You're always so sensitive. Sensitive. That word hurt me more than he ever knew. But I kept quiet, because I thought complaining was being bothersome, because I thought a good mother should understand, give in, adapt, because I believed that true love was invisible, silent, without demanding anything in return. I didn't know that silence would cost me much more than I imagined. The first time I felt that this house was no longer mine was on a Tuesday afternoon. I had gone to the doctor for a routine checkup. Nothing serious, just the checkups that women my age have. When I returned, I found two men loading my furniture into a truck. My favourite armchair, that blue armchair where Michael read the newspaper every afternoon, where I sat to knit while watching TV shows, where I had rocked my grandchildren when they were babies. Wait! What are you doing? I shouted, dropping my purse at the entrance. Megan came out of the house with a calm smile, as if nothing strange was happening. Oh, Eleanor, good thing you arrived. Look, we needed more space in the living room, so I sold some old furniture. It didn't match the new decor anymore. I was paralyzed. You sold my armchair? It was the house's, wasn't it? She said, shrugging. Besides, it was very worn out. With what I got, I bought that modern bookcase that's in the corner. Have you seen it? It looks beautiful. The men kept loading. I saw them also take the coffee table, which Michael had made with his own hands, the lamp we had bought on our 15th anniversary, the mirror with the gold frame that had belonged to my mother. Megan, those things have sentimental value to me. Oh, mother-in-law, but we can't live in a museum. We have to renovate, modernize. Besides, you always say that material things aren't what's important, right? She used my own words against me. I stood there, watching pieces of my history being taken away. And I didn't know what to say. Because technically it was everyone's house, right? They lived there. Robert paid for some utilities, and I was just the mum who was in the way. That night I waited for Robert to come home from work. I needed to talk to him. I needed him to understand what had happened. Son, I need to talk to you. Tell me, Mum, he replied as he took off his shoes, exhausted. Megan sold my furniture today. Your dad's armchair, the table he made. Oh, yeah, he commented. The living room looks really good, doesn't it? It looks more spacious. But Robert, that furniture was important to me. They are memories of your dad. My son sighed. That sigh that people use when they feel you are exaggerating. Mum, I understand it's hard for you, but Megan is right. The house needed renovating. We can't stay stuck in the past. Dad is gone, and life goes on. I felt as if he had slapped me. Life goes on, I repeated, my voice trembling. Is it that easy for you to erase your father's memories? I'm not erasing anything, but I'm also not going to turn this house into a sanctuary. Megan lives here too. She has the right to feel comfortable. And I don't? Robert looked at me with weariness. Mum, please don't start. I had a really hard day at work. I don't want to come home and have to deal with drama. Drama. My pain was drama to him. I went to my room without saying anything else. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the photographs I had on my dresser. Michael smiling at our wedding, the little children in the garden, the house when it was still ours. That night I cried in silence with the door closed so no one would hear me, because I realized something terrible. When we let others decide for us, when we keep quiet for fear of bothering, we begin to disappear. Little by little, without realizing it, we become invisible in our own lives. The next day, things got worse. Megan changed the lock on the front door without telling me. When I came home from the market, my key no longer worked. I had to ring the doorbell as if I were a visitor. I gave the spare key to a neighbor and she never returned it, Megan explained, handing me a new key. It's better to change everything for safety. But I knew the truth. It was her way of telling me that the house no longer belonged to me in the same way. The children also started to change with me. Sebastian no longer sought me out to tell him stories. Valerie looked at me with pity, as if she knew her mum was treating me badly, but didn't dare to say anything. One afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, I heard Megan talking on the phone with her mum. "Yes, Mum. I know. It's exhausting. She's always here, always giving her opinion on everything. I can't even move a piece of furniture without her getting sentimental. No, Robert doesn't say anything. He always defends her. But I swear that as soon as we can, we are going to, well, we'll see." She stopped when she saw me standing in the doorway. "Do you need something, Eleanor?" she asked with a false smile. "No, nothing." I went back to the kitchen with a broken heart. "We are going to, what? Kick me out? Put me in an assisted living facility? Get rid of me like they got rid of the old furniture?" That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I understood that I had crossed a point of no return. The house I had built with so much love no longer felt like a home. I felt like an uncomfortable tenant, tolerated out of charity. But what I didn't know yet was that the worst was still to come. While I'm telling all this, I'm thinking about where you might be listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. After that conversation I overheard, I decided that the best way to keep the peace was to become invisible. If Megan wanted to change the decor, I didn't say anything. If she changed the menu I had planned for the week, I smiled and nodded. If the children no longer looked for me because their mum kept them busy with activities outside the house, I pretended it didn't hurt. I became a shadow in my own house. I started getting up earlier to make breakfast before Megan came downstairs, so she didn't have to deal with me in the kitchen. I washed my own clothes at night, when everyone was asleep, so as not to be in the way. I bought my own things at the market and kept them in a corner of the refrigerator that she had assigned to me, as if I were a roommate in a shared apartment. One morning, Sebastian came down for breakfast and saw me preparing pancakes. "Grandma, can you make me some?" he asked me with that 8-year-old boy face that still melted my heart. "Of course, my love, with syrup, right?" "Yes." I was flipping the pancakes when Megan walked into the kitchen. Her expression changed immediately. "Sebastian, I already told you not to eat those things. They're fattening and full of sugar." "But Mum, Grandma makes them really good." "I don't care. I'm going to make you a spinach and banana smoothie. It's much healthier." The boy looked down, defeated. I turned off the stove without saying a word and left the pancakes on the plate. No one ate them. They ended up in the trash. Later that day, while cleaning my room, I heard voices in the living room. It was Megan talking to a friend who had come to visit her. "Yes, the truth is that living with your mother-in-law is a martyrdom. She's always there, always getting involved where she's not wanted. The other day she wanted to teach me how to make rice, can you imagine? As if I didn't know how to cook." Her friend laughed. "Oh girl, that's tough. But hey, at least you don't pay rent, right?" "Well, yeah, there's that. But sometimes I think I'd rather pay and have my own house, without having to put up with it." I moved away from the door. I felt like I couldn't breathe. That same afternoon, when Robert came home from work, I mustered up the courage and asked him to talk. Son, I feel like things are really tense here at home. Tense? Why? Megan and I don't think we're getting along well. Robert put his cell phone on the table and looked at me with that expression I already knew, exhaustion mixed with annoyance. Mum, what happened now? Nothing specific. It's just that I feel like I'm in the way, that my presence bothers her. And what have you done so that it doesn't bother her? The question froze me. What have I done? Yes, Mum. Have you tried to adapt? Have you respected her space? Because Megan tells me that sometimes you are very nosy, that you have an opinion on everything, that you want to keep running the house as if she didn't exist. I felt as if he had thrown a bucket of cold water on me. I would never. Robert, I just want to help. This is my house. I've been living here for 40 years. It was your house, Mum. Now it's everyone's. And if we want to live in peace, everyone has to compromise, including you. I was speechless. My own son was telling me that I was the problem. Look, he continued in a softer tone, I know it's hard for you, but Megan is making a huge effort. She works, takes care of the children, maintains the house. The least we can do is not pressure her anymore. And what am I? Don't I take care of the children too? Don't I cook? Don't I clean? Yes, but… Oh, Mom, I don't want to fight. Just try to be more understanding, okay? I didn't have dinner that night. I locked myself in my room and cried myself to sleep. The following weeks were worse. Megan stopped talking to me unless it was absolutely necessary. When I walked into a room, she walked out. If I turned on the television in the living room, she turned up the music in her room. The children also started calling me Grandma Eleanor, instead of just Grandma, as if they needed to put my last name to distance themselves. One Sunday, Megan's family came over for a meal. Her parents, her brothers and sisters, her nieces and nephews filled the house with laughter and music. I stayed in my room because no one had invited me out. In the middle of the afternoon, there was a knock on my bedroom door. It was Megan's mum. Eleanor, aren't you going to come down? You're missing the party. I don't want to bother. She walked in and closed the door behind her. She sat on the edge of my bed with a kind, maternal expression. Look, I know what you're going through isn't easy, but let me give you some mother-to-mother advice. Sometimes, we mothers cling too much to our children, and when they form their own families, we have to learn to let go. I'm not clinging to my son. I just want to live in peace in my own house. I know. But think about Megan. She also needs to feel that this house is hers, that she can make decisions without someone questioning her all the time. I don't question her. Eleanor, with all due respect, yes, you do. Megan tells me, and I understand that it's not your intention, but sometimes your presence is heavy. That word. Heavy. My daughter is a strong, hard-working woman, a good mother, but she lives under a lot of pressure, and having her mother-in-law always there, watching, giving her opinion is difficult. Do you understand me? I didn't answer, because I understood perfectly. They were telling me, in the kindest way possible, that I was a nuisance. Why don't you take a vacation? She suggested. You have a daughter in Dallas, right? You could visit her for a couple of months. It would be good for everyone to have a little distance. After she left, I stayed sitting on my bed, looking at the photographs I had on my dresser. At what point had I become the villain in this story? At what point had my mother's love turned into a burden? I started to seriously consider the idea of leaving. Maybe they were right. Maybe my presence was the problem. Maybe if I disappeared, everyone would be happier. I called my daughter Lucy that night. Mum, what's wrong? You never call me so late. Honey, I need to ask you something. Do you think I could come visit you? Stay with you for a while? There was a long silence. Mum, you know I would love to, but I'm at a very complicated time. My husband just lost his job. We're looking to move to a cheaper place. It's not a good time. I understand. Did something happen? Are you okay? Yes, I just wanted to hear your voice. I hung up before she could hear me crying. I had nowhere to go. I had no escape. So I did the only thing I knew how to do: submit. I stopped using the living room. I stopped cooking unless Megan expressly asked me to. I stopped giving my opinion on anything. I became a ghost that wandered the halls, that ate alone in the kitchen, that spent the afternoons locked in her room, watching TV shows with the volume low so as not to bother anyone. One afternoon, while watering the plants in the garden, the only thing Megan still allowed me to do, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I sat down on the stone bench, breathing with difficulty. The pain passed after a few minutes, but it left me scared. The next day I went to the doctor without telling anyone. Mrs. Nelson, we need to run some tests. I need to check your heart thoroughly. The tests showed something worse, a suspicious mass in my chest that required immediate surgery. When I got home with the results, I looked for Robert. Son, I need to talk to you. It's important. Tell me, Mum. I have to have surgery. They found something in the tests. It's a delicate surgery. I saw his face fill with genuine concern. For a moment, I saw my little boy again, the son who hugged me when I had nightmares, who told me I was his superhero. What did they find? Is it serious? They don't know yet. That's why they have to operate, to see what it is. Robert hugged me, and for the first time in months, I felt that I was not alone. Don't worry, Mum. Everything is going to be fine. We are going to be with you. I told Megan that night during dinner. I expected some empathy, perhaps a gesture of concern. And when is the surgery? She asked, without looking up from her plate. In 2 weeks. Right when I have that work conference. I hope you don't need much help afterwards, because I'm going to be very busy. Robert looked at her, surprised. Megan, it's serious surgery. I know, but I have responsibilities too. Besides, that's what the nurses at the hospital are for, right? I got up from the table without finishing my meal. I didn't want them to see me cry again. The night before the surgery, I packed my suitcase. Comfortable clothes, my medications, a photograph of Michael that I always carried with me. I checked that everything was in order in my room, as if I had a premonition that something was going to change. Robert took me to the hospital early in the morning. Megan stayed home with the children. I'll be waiting for you when you come out, Mum. Everything is going to be fine. The surgery lasted 4 hours. When I woke up, Robert was there, holding my hand. How do you feel? Aching, I whispered. The doctor says everything went well, but you have to stay here for a few days for observation. I spent 4 days in the hospital. Robert visited me after work. The children came once, but Megan never showed up. When they finally discharged me, Robert told me he would take me home. Is Megan preparing my room? I asked as we got into the car. Robert didn't answer immediately. Mum, you're going to be fine. You just need to rest. Something in his tone made me nervous. The drive home was silent. Robert drove focused, his hands clenched on the steering wheel. I looked out the window, seeing the streets I knew by heart, feeling that something terrible was about to happen. When we arrived, I saw a taxi parked in front of the house. Strange. Robert got out first and helped me out of the car carefully. Every movement hurt. The bandages on my chest felt tight, and the pain from the surgery was constant, stabbing. Then I saw it, my suitcase, thrown on the sidewalk, and Megan, standing in the doorway of my house, with her arms crossed and a look I will never forget. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? The taxi that had brought me from the hospital was still there, the engine running. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror, confused, waiting to see what would happen. Robert was paralyzed when he saw the suitcase on the sidewalk. I saw his face go from surprise to confusion, and then to something I couldn't decipher. "Megan," he said in a trembling voice. "What is this?" She walked down the entrance steps, with firm, determined steps. She was wearing that red blouse that she knew Robert liked. Her hair perfectly styled, impeccable makeup, as if she had prepared for this moment. "It's exactly what it looks like," she replied without looking at me, only at him. "She can't stay here anymore." "What do you mean she can't stay? She just got out of the hospital." "Precisely because of that. She needs care that I can't give her. I have my own children, my job, my life. I'm not going to become your mother's nurse." I was still holding onto the car door, unable to move. The pain in my chest was intense, but the pain in my heart was worse. "What are you talking about?" Robert raised his voice. "She is my mother, and I am your wife. Or did you forget?" Megan took another step toward him, lowering her voice, but with an intensity that chilled my blood. "We've been living in this house for years, Robert. Years putting up with it, giving in, walking on tiptoes so as not to bother your mum. And you know what? I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling like a stranger in my own house, of everything having to be the way she says, the way she wants, the way she dictates. No one has forced you to do anything." "Oh no? And who pays for the electricity? Who pays for the gas, the water, the internet, the food? We do. Your mother doesn't contribute anything more than her complaints and her martyr sighs." Every word was a stab. "That's not true," I tried to say, but my voice came out so weak that no one heard me. "That house is not an assisted living facility, and I'm not a babysitter," Megan shouted. And this time several neighbors looked out their windows. "Either she goes, or I go with the children. You decide." I saw Robert run out of breath, how he looked at his wife, then at me, then back at her, as if he were making calculations, as if he were weighing what suited him best. And at that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't the suitcase thrown on the sidewalk. It wasn't Megan's cruel words. It was seeing my son hesitate, seeing in his eyes that he was genuinely considering the possibility of choosing her over me. The taxi driver rolled down the window. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do I need to call someone?" I couldn't answer him. I held onto the car because I felt like I was going to faint. The bandages were burning, my chest was throbbing, and the whole world was spinning. Then I heard the engine of another car. Robert heard it too, his work car, which he had left parked further ahead. Someone had moved it. But he didn't have time to react because at that moment, something happened that none of us expected. Sebastian, my grandson, came out of the house. His eyes were red from crying so much. "Dad, don't let her kick Grandma out, please." Megan turned to him furiously. "Sebastian, go inside right now." "No, you're mean. I heard everything you said on the phone." The world stopped. Robert looked at his son, then at his wife. "What did you say on the phone?" he asked in a dangerously calm voice. Megan paled. "Nothing. The boy is confused." Liar, Sebastian shouted. You told your sister that as soon as Grandma had surgery, you were going to kick her out, that it was your perfect opportunity because she would be weak and couldn't defend herself. I heard everything. I felt as if someone had ripped my heart out of my chest. You planned this? Robert whispered. You waited until she was sick to… Oh, please, don't be dramatic. Someone had to make the decision you were never going to make. We've been living uncomfortably because of her for years. She's my mother. And I'm your wife. How many times do I have to tell you? How long are you going to be tied to your mum's apron strings? Valerie also came out of the house, crying and clung to her dad's legs. Daddy, don't let Mum be mean to Grandma. Robert was breathing heavily. I saw his hands tremble, how he clenched his fists. And then something happened that I will never forget. My son, that man who had hesitated just seconds before, walked toward me. He took my arm carefully, tenderly, and helped me sit down on the garden bench. Wait here, Mum. I'll be right back. He turned toward Megan, and in his gaze I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Determination. You and I need to talk. Inside. Now. I have nothing to talk about. Inside. The shout made even Megan take a step back. They went into the house. The children stayed with me in the garden. Sebastian sat down next to me and hugged me carefully, trying not to hurt me. I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have told you what I heard sooner, but I was scared. It's not your fault, my love, I whispered, stroking his hair. None of this is your fault. From inside, voices could be heard. Robert was yelling. Megan was yelling louder. Doors slamming could be heard. Something breaking. Mrs. Charlotte, the neighbour across the street, crossed the street and approached me. Eleanor, are you okay? You look very pale. I'm fine, thank you. Do you want me to bring you water? Should I call someone? I shook my head. I just wanted all of this to end. I don't know how much time passed. It could have been 10 minutes or an hour. Time had become strange, thick. Finally, the door opened. Robert came out first. His face was red, his eyes bright. Behind him came Megan, with her arms crossed and an expression of contained fury. My son walked toward me and knelt in front of the bench where I was sitting. He took my hands and looked me in the eyes. Mum, forgive me. Robert. No, let me talk. Forgive me for not having seen what was happening, for not having defended you when I should have, for having allowed them to treat you like this in your own house. Tears rolled down his cheeks. This house is yours. You built it with Dad. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to kick you out of here. He stood up and turned toward Megan. And what he said next changed everything. Robert stood in front of Megan, with the children still clinging to his legs. I was still sitting on the bench, supported by Mrs. Charlotte, who had insisted on staying with me. The silence was so dense that I could hear my own heart beating. Do you know what the saddest thing about all this is? Robert began, in a voice so calm it was scary. That I believed you. For months, for years. I believed you when you told me that my mum was difficult, that she was nosy, that she didn't respect your space. Megan opened her mouth to speak, but he raised his hand. No, now it's my turn. He took a deep breath, as if gathering strength. I let my own mother feel invisible in her house. I saw her shrink, become a ghost, disappear little by little, and I did nothing. Because you convinced me that she was the problem. Robert, I never… Yes, you did. His voice finally exploded. You sold her furniture, the furniture that my dad made with his own hands. You changed the lock so she would feel like she wasn't welcome anymore. You kept her away from the children. You made her feel like a nuisance in her own house. Sebastian was crying silently, hugging me. Valerie looked at her mum with an expression I had never seen on a 6-year-old girl. Disappointment. And the worst part, Robert continued, his voice breaking, is that you waited until she was sick. You waited until she was vulnerable, just out of surgery, with her body aching, to kick her out like she was garbage. Megan took a step toward him. Robert, please understand. I just wanted us to have our own space. We had our own space. We had an apartment. We were the ones who asked to move in here. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw Megan pale, how she searched for words she couldn't find. Did you forget? Robert asked, with bitterness in every word. When Sebastian was 2 years old and you lost your job, when we couldn't pay the rent and were about to end up on the street, who opened the doors of her house to us without asking for anything in return? Megan looked down. My mum. She told us, this house is big. There's room for everyone. Come until you get back on your feet. And we accepted. But we didn't just accept her roof, did we? Little by little, you started taking control of everything, as if the house were yours. Robert walked toward me and extended his hand to help me stand up. Every movement hurt, but I held onto his arm. And now comes the part you didn't know, Megan. There was something in his tone that made her look up, alert. This house is not everyone's. This house is not in my name. This house is completely paid for and deeded in my mum's name. Eleanor Nelson. The world stopped. Megan looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. What? You heard me. My dad and my mum worked for 15 years to pay for this house. When my dad died, he left everything in my mum's name. I never put a single dollar into this property. We live here because of her generosity, not by right. I saw Megan's legs tremble. She held onto the entrance railing. But you said the house belonged to the family. And it does, to the family. But the legal owner is my mother. Always has been. Robert looked at me tenderly. Forgive me, Mum. I should have said it from the beginning. I should have protected you. But I thought that if we pretended that everything belonged to everyone, there would be fewer conflicts. I was wrong. I gave power to someone who didn't deserve it. Megan was paralyzed. I saw her brain process the information, how she finally understood that her whole plan had collapsed. So, all this discussion is because it turns out to be her house. Her voice sounded small, scared. No, Robert replied firmly. This discussion is because you forgot something fundamental: human decency. He walked toward her, and Megan instinctively backed away. My mum just got out of surgery. She has an open chest, bandages, pain. She needs care. And you kicked her out. You threw her onto the street as if she were garbage. And you didn't do it because of lack of space. You didn't do it because you couldn't take care of her. You did it out of cruelty, out of resentment, because you wanted to show who was in charge here. Tears began to roll down Megan's face, but they weren't tears of repentance. They were tears of rage, of humiliation. And now what? She asked with a trembling voice. Are you going to kick me out? Robert took a deep breath. I'm not going to kick you out, because I'm not like you, but I'm going to make something very clear to you. He approached her until he was inches from her face. My mom stays in this house, in her house, and you have two options. Either you learn to treat her with the respect she deserves, or you leave. You decide. But if you choose to stay, Things are going to change. Radically. What do you mean by that? I mean that my mom is going to get her place back. She's going to be able to use the living room when she wants, cook when she wants, be with her grandchildren when she wants. She's going to stop hiding in her room as if she were an intruder. And you are going to treat her with dignity, with love, with gratitude, because that is what she deserves. Megan looked at him with disbelief. And what if I can't do that? Then pack your things and leave. But if you go alone. The children stay with me. You can't do that. Of course I can. Because we live in my mum's house, not in a place you contributed to, and because my children have just seen how you treat their grandmother, and that is going to mark them forever. Sebastian held on to me tighter. I want to stay with Grandma and Dad, he said with a trembling voice. Valerie nodded. Me too. I saw Megan's face crumble, how she understood that she had lost, that her plan had not only failed, but had exploded in her face. She covered her face with her hands and began to sob. But I didn't feel sorry for her, not after everything she had done. Robert turned to me. Mum, let's go inside. You need to rest. He helped me walk toward the house. When we passed Megan, she looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen. Eleanor, I stopped. I looked her in the eyes. I don't want your apologies, Megan, because they don't come from the heart. They come from fear, the fear of losing what was never yours. You wanted power. You wanted control. And to get it, you trampled a woman who had opened the doors of her house and her heart to you. That is not forgiven with words. It is forgiven with actions. Robert guided me inside. The children followed us, one on each side. Mrs. Charlotte picked up my suitcase from the sidewalk. I'll bring this in for you, Eleanor. And if you need anything, I'll be here. Thank you, Charlotte. When we entered the house, everything looked the same, but everything felt different, as if the walls themselves had witnessed the truth and were now breathing a sigh of relief. Robert took me to my room and helped me lie down. Rest, Mum. I'll take care of everything. And Megan, that's her decision. If she wants to stay, she'll have to change. If she can't, she can leave. But you are not going to suffer anymore. I promise. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of months of pain, humiliation, and silence finally lifting from my shoulders. Outside in the living room, I heard Megan picking up some things. I heard her steps, her contained crying. I heard Robert talking to the children, calmly explaining what had happened. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I had forgotten. Peace. But the story didn't end there, because the consequences of our actions, good or bad, always come. And what happened to Megan in the following months was something that neither she nor I expected. Life has its own way of serving justice. The following days were strange, tense, like walking on broken glass. Megan didn't leave that night. She went up to her room, locked the door, and didn't come down until the next day. When she finally appeared in the kitchen, it was late morning. I was sitting at the table, drinking the brewed coffee that Robert had prepared for me. She walked in with swollen eyes, dishevelled hair, still in her pajamas. She saw me and stopped abruptly, as if she didn't know if she could enter or not. "Good morning," I said in a neutral voice. "Good morning," she replied barely, with a thread of a voice. She made coffee in silence. Her hands trembled as she poured the water. I watched her without saying anything, wondering what was going through her head. Finally, she sat down at the table, on the other side. There were 3 empty chairs between us, but it felt like an abyss. "Eleanor, I she began, but her voice broke. I waited. I wasn't going to make things easy for her. I'm not a bad person, she said, looking at her cup. I know what I did yesterday was horrible. I know I hurt you, but I need you to understand. I was also suffering. I raised an eyebrow. You were suffering? Yes, I know it doesn't look like it, but living in this house has been very difficult for me. I took a sip of my coffee, letting her continue. When Robert suggested we move in here, I thought it would be temporary. A few months, a year at most. But time passed, and we were still here. And every time I wanted to do something, change something, decorate something, I felt like I was invading your space, as if everything had to go through your approval first. I never asked you for that. I know, but that's how I felt. And instead of talking to you, instead of looking for a solution, I let the resentment grow. I let the frustration eat me up inside until I became someone I don't want to be. Her eyes filled with tears. Yesterday, when I saw my own children looking at me with that disappointment, when Sebastian called me mean, I saw myself for the first time, and I was terrified. The silence settled between us again. I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm going to try to change. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try. For my children, and because Robert is right, I forgot human decency. I looked at her for a long time. There was sincerity in her words, but there were also years of accumulated pain in my chest. Megan, I appreciate your honesty, really, but I can't tell you that everything is fine, because it's not. I can't simply forget months of humiliation, of feeling invisible in my own house, of crying alone in my room every night. She nodded, wiping away her tears. I understand, but I'm also not going to ask Robert to kick you out, because you are the mother of my grandchildren, and they need you. So if you really want to stay, you're going to have to prove it to me, not with words, but with actions. I will. I promise. I didn't answer. Promises were easy. Keeping them was the hard part. The next few days, Megan tried. She really tried. She asked me if I needed anything. She offered to help me change my bandages. She cooked and served me the plate without me having to ask. She let the children spend time with me without interfering. But there was something forced about everything, as if she were acting, playing a role, and I noticed it. The children noticed it too. One afternoon, Sebastian came to my room. Grandma, do you think Mum changed? I sat up in bed and made room for him to sit with me. I think your mum is trying to change, and that's something. But I feel like she's angry all the time, as if doing good things is hard for her. How wise my grandson was. At his 8 years old, he saw what adults pretended to ignore. Sometimes, my love, changing is difficult, especially when we have to admit we were wrong. Your mom is making an effort, and we have to recognize that. But true change takes time, and if she doesn't change, then we'll have to make other decisions. The problem came 2 weeks later. I was getting better. They had already removed my bandages. The pain had decreased. I could move more easily. One afternoon I decided to cook, too. It had been so long since I had prepared a complete meal for the whole family. I made turkey and dressing, the one Robert had liked since he was a child, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and even homemade sweet tea. I set the table nicely with the tablecloth my mum had given me on my wedding day. When Robert came home from work and saw the set table, his eyes lit up. Mum, this smells delicious. Are you feeling better? Much better, son. I wanted to do something special for everyone. The children ran down when they smelled the food. They sat down excitedly, all talking at once about their day at school. But when Megan came downstairs and saw the scene, her expression changed. She sat in silence, tense. She ate without looking up from her plate. When Robert tried to include her in the conversation, she responded with monosyllables. After dinner, while I was clearing the dishes, I heard her in the living room talking to Robert. See, this is exactly what I was telling you. As soon as she recovers, she's already taking control of everything again. Megan, she just made dinner. It's not just the dinner, Robert. It's the message. It's her saying, "This is still my house, and I'm the one in charge here." Are you serious? My mum makes a delicious meal for the whole family, and you interpret it as an attack. You don't understand. You don't understand what it feels like to live here, always in her shadow, always feeling less than. I moved away from the door. I didn't want to hear any more. That night, in my room, I understood something painful. Megan was not going to change, or at least, she couldn't change living here. The house constantly reminded her of her humiliation, her loss of control. And the more she tried to be kind, the more resentment she accumulated. It was like trying to stop the wind with your hands. The next morning, Megan knocked on my bedroom door. It was barely 7 o'clock in the morning. "Can I come in?" "Come in." She walked in with a cup of coffee in her hands. She held it out to me. "I made it the way you like it, with cinnamon." I took the cup, surprised. "Thank you." She sat on the edge of my bed, nervously playing with her hands. "Eleanor, I need to be honest with you. I've been thinking a lot and I don't think I can do this." My heart tightened, but I didn't say anything. It's not out of malice. I really want to be a better person. I really want to repair the damage I caused. But every time I walk down the stairs, every time I go into the kitchen, every time I see the children running toward you, I feel like I'm suffocating. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. This house has too much history. Your history, Michael's, your children's. And I don't have a place here. I never did. I just didn't want to see it. Megan. No, let me finish. I'm going to ask Robert to look for another place. An apartment, a small house, whatever. But we need our own space, where I can be the mum, where I can set the rules, where I don't feel like I'm competing with a ghost. You're not competing with anyone. Yes, I am. I'm competing with the memory of a perfect family that existed before I arrived. And it's a competition I'm never going to win. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. But before I leave, I need to ask for your forgiveness. Truly. Not for staying here, not for not losing my family, but because it's the right thing to do. I treated you horribly, Eleanor. I made you feel invisible. I humiliated you. I hurt you. And when you were most vulnerable, I tried to throw you out onto the street. That is unforgivable. Her voice completely broke. I am not the person I thought I was, and I need to get away from here to find myself again, to be the mother my children deserve. I remained silent for a long time, looking at that broken woman in front of me who had finally found some humility in her pain. "I appreciate the honesty," I finally said. "And you're right. I think the best thing for everyone is for you to have your own space. But Megan, promise me something." She looked at me with red eyes. "Don't let this resentment consume you. Don't let this experience embitter your life. Learn from this, grow from this, and be better." She nodded, sobbing. "I will try." She got up to leave, but stopped at the door. "Eleanor, there's something else you need to know." My heart raced. What is it? 2 months ago, I convinced Robert to take out a loan. I told him it was to remodel the house to make improvements, but the truth is, I wanted to use that money to buy you a spot in a retirement home. I thought that if I could convince him that it was the best thing for you, that you needed specialized care, he would accept. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. Did Robert know this? No. He thought the loan was to fix the kitchen, but I had already reserved a spot. I had already made the down payment. Everything was ready for when you left the hospital. The pieces finally fit together. That's why her plan had been so specific. That's why she had waited until I was sick. But when Sebastian found me out, when Robert found out about everything, the plan collapsed. Now we have a debt of $200,000 that we don't know how to pay. She covered her face with her hands. I destroyed everything. The peace of this house, my husband's trust, my children's respect. And to top it all off, I left us with a huge debt. I'm a mess. I didn't know what to say. The magnitude of her deception was greater than I had imagined. Megan left my room, leaving me with that revelation that burned inside me. That same day, Robert rented a small apartment on the other side of the city. In 2 weeks, they packed their things and left. The day they moved out, the children cried. Sebastian hugged me tightly. I'm going to miss you, Grandma. Me too, my love. But we're going to see each other often, I promise. Valerie clung to my leg. Are you not going to make turkey and dressing for me anymore? Of course I will, every time you come to visit. Robert loaded the last box into the car. He came toward me with teary eyes. Mum, forgive me. For everything. It's already forgiven, son. I'm going to pay that debt. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And we're going to come visit you every weekend. Don't worry about that now. Worry about your family, about rebuilding what was broken. I hugged him, feeling him cry on my shoulder like when he was a child. When the car drove away, I stood in the doorway of my house. My house, empty again, silent again. But this time the silence was not one of fear, it was one of peace. I went in and closed the door behind me. The first days after they left were strange. The house was silent, but it wasn't the heavy silence from before, when I hid in my room so as not to bother anyone. It was a clean silence, like after a storm, as if the walls themselves were resting. I woke up the first morning in the empty house and went down to make my brewed coffee. As the water boiled, I looked at the kitchen. My kitchen, where I had taught my children how to make biscuits, where I had comforted Robert when his heart was first broken, where Michael and I had drunk coffee every morning for 40 years. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel pain in remembering, only gratitude. The first weekends, Robert kept his promise. He came with the children every Saturday. He left them with me while he went to work extra hours to pay off the debt that Megan had left. Mom, it's going to take me about 2 years to finish paying this off, he confessed one day, his head in his hands. 2 years of working double shifts, of not being able to give the children everything they need. You're going to make it, son. You're strong. Sometimes I wonder how I could have been so blind, how I let everything go so far. I sat next to him in the living room, holding his hand. Love blinds us, Robert, and you loved your wife. There's nothing wrong with that. But I let her hurt my own mother. And you are here now. That's what matters. A month after they moved out, I received a call from the bank. It was about a loan Michael had when he was alive, a small loan he had taken out to fix the roof of the house. With Michael's death, that loan had been frozen. But now, after 12 years, The bank was offering to liquidate it with a significant discount, 70%, if I paid in cash. The total amount with the discount was almost exactly the same as the debt that Robert had to pay. I stared at the papers for hours. I had that money. I had saved it for years, dollar by dollar. It was my emergency fund, my security for when I really needed it. If I used it to help Robert, I would be left with very little. But something in my heart told me what I had to do. The next morning, I went to the bank in downtown Los Angeles. I paid off Michael's old loan and requested to speak with the manager who handled Robert's account. "Mrs. Nelson, how can I help you?" "I'm here to pay off my son, Robert Mendoza's debt." The manager looked at me surprised. "Ma'am, it's a considerable amount." "I know. I have the money." I made the full transfer, $200,000, practically all my savings. When I left the bank, I sat on the park bench across the street. I looked at the payment receipt in my hands and felt something I didn't expect. Lightness. It wasn't exactly happiness. It was something deeper. It was the peace of knowing that I had done the right thing, without expecting anything in return. I asked the manager not to tell Robert who had paid the debt, only that it had been forgiven due to a bank program. I didn't want my son to feel that he owed me something. I wanted him to be free of that burden. That night, Robert came to my house almost running, his eyes full of tears. "Mum, you won't believe it. The bank forgave my debt. They said I qualified for a support program. I don't owe anything anymore." I hugged him, feeling him tremble with relief. "What a blessing, son. What a blessing." "It's a miracle, Mum. A miracle. Now I'm going to be able to give the children what they need. I'm going to be able to save for our own house. I'm so glad, Robert. You deserve it." I never told him the truth, and I never will, because I learned something during these months of pain. True love doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need recognition. It is given in silence, like the water that flows under the earth, feeding the roots without anyone seeing it. The weeks passed. My life found a new rhythm. The children continued to come every weekend. I taught them how to cook, told them stories, filled them with love. Sebastian helped me in the garden. Valerie taught me songs she learned at school. Mrs. Charlotte, my neighbor, started coming over for coffee in the afternoons. Mrs. Lopez from the corner and Mrs. Miller, who lived 2 houses down, also came. My living room filled with the laughter of women my age, sharing stories, recipes, advice. "Eleanor, you look different," Mrs. Charlotte told me one day, "like you're younger." "I feel different," I admitted, as if I had finally found my place again. "And Megan, have you heard anything about her?" I shook my head. "Robert doesn't talk much about her. I know they're still together, that they're trying to save their marriage, but it's not easy." "Do you think they'll make it?" "I don't know, but it's not my problem anymore. They have to find their own path." One afternoon, 3 months after they moved out, Megan appeared at my door. She was carrying a grocery bag in her hands. She looked haggard, with deep, dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept in weeks. "Eleanor, can I come in?" I hesitated for a moment, but finally opened the door. "Come in." We went into the kitchen. I poured her water. She sat down with the bag still in her hands, as if she didn't know what to do with it. "I brought some things. Some donuts. Fruit." "You didn't have to bring anything." "I know." The silence settled between us, but this time it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a silence of 2 women who had gone through a war and were now on the other side. "How are the children?" I asked. "Fine. They ask about you a lot. Sebastian says Grandma makes better turkey and dressing than I do." She tried to smile, but it didn't come out right. They are good children. Yes, they are. She took a sip of water with trembling hands. Eleanor, I came to tell you something, and I need you to listen to me until the end. I nodded. These months have been the most difficult of my life, not just because we moved or because money is tight, but because every day I look in the mirror and I see someone I don't want to be. Her eyes filled with tears. Robert looks at me differently. The children look at me differently. I look at myself differently. And the worst part is that I know I deserved it, that everything I'm suffering is a consequence of what I caused. Megan. No, let me finish. I've been seeing a therapist who is helping me understand why I did what I did, and the truth is painful. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I grew up in a family where my mum was always the second best. My dad treated her badly, made her feel less than, and she let him. And I swore that when I got married, I was going to be the one in charge. I was going to be the one who controlled things. No one was going to trample me like they trampled my mum. She took a deep breath. But in that process, I became what I hated most. I became the person who tramples others. And the person I trampled was you, a woman who only wanted to love her family in peace. Tears were running freely down her face now. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry. I really am sorry. And that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. Not for you, not for you to accept me again, but for me, so I can look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgusted. I remained silent for a long time, looking at her, seeing that broken woman, humiliated by her own actions, carrying the weight of her mistakes. And at that moment, I understood something fundamental. Megan, do you know what the difference is between a good person and a bad person? She shook her head. A bad person does harm and doesn't care. A good person does harm, realizes it, and changes. You are choosing to change. That already makes you better than you were. Her eyes widened, surprised. Do you really believe that? Yes, but real change takes time, and it's going to require you to be constant, to be humble, to accept that there will be difficult moments. Are you willing to do that work? Yes, I am. Then I'm going to ask you for something, anything. Be good to my son. Be good to my grandchildren. That is the only way you can truly compensate for the damage you did. Megan nodded, sobbing. I promise. She got up to leave. But before reaching the door, she turned around. Eleanor, one last thing. My heart raced. What is it? 2 months ago, Robert told me that the bank had forgiven his debt. I know those things don't just happen. I know it was you. My heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. And I need you to know that that gesture broke me. After everything I did to you, you paid off our debt. Why? I looked her in the eyes. Because I didn't do it for you. I did it for my son and my grandchildren, so they could have a life without that burden. What you do with that second chance is your decision. Megan covered her mouth with her hand, trying to contain her crying. I'll never be able to repay you. You don't have to repay me anything. Just be better. That's all I ask. After she left, I sat in the kitchen, watching the sunset through the window. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace with who I was. Because I understood that true justice does not come from revenge, It does not come from seeing the person who hurt us suffer. True justice comes from doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. It comes from choosing love over resentment, generosity over bitterness. And that choice had set me free. That night, before sleeping, I looked at Michael's photograph on my dresser. "We did well, love," I whispered to him. "We raised a good son, and now he is going to raise good grandchildren. Our legacy continues." I turned off the light and fell asleep with a smile on my lips. But what I didn't know was that life still had one last lesson to teach me, a lesson about how the universe, in mysterious ways, always collects what is owed. 6 months passed since that conversation with Megan in my kitchen. The children continued to come every weekend. Robert looked better and better, calmer, as if he had finally found a balance. But when I asked him about Megan, he quickly changed the subject. "She's fine, Mom. Working hard." But I noticed something in his voice, a sadness that couldn't be hidden. One afternoon in March, Mrs. Charlotte came over for coffee with a worried expression. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something, but I don't know if I should." "What's wrong?" "I saw your daughter-in-law the other day. She was at the supermarket alone, and I swear I didn't recognize her at first. She looks bad, really bad." My heart tightened. Bad how? Haggard, with messy hair, and she was crying while she was waiting in line at the checkout. People were looking at her, but she didn't even notice. I didn't know what to say. "I followed her outside," Charlotte continued. "I couldn't help it. I asked her if she was okay, and she just looked at me with those empty eyes and said, 'Nothing is okay, Mom. Nothing.' I couldn't sleep that night. As much as I had suffered because of Megan, I couldn't help but feel compassion, because I recognized that emptiness in her gaze. I had had it too. The next time Robert came over, I confronted him directly. "Son, what's going on with Megan?" Robert sighed deeply and collapsed onto the couch. "I don't even know where to start, Mum." "Start at the beginning." He rubbed his face with his hands, exhausted. After everything that happened, Megan started going to therapy. At first it seemed like it was helping her, but about 3 months ago something changed. She started isolating herself. She quit her job. She quit her job? Yes. She said she couldn't concentrate, that her co-workers were looking at her strangely, that she felt like everyone was talking about her. I told her they were her imagination, but she was convinced. Robert stared into space. Then she started having panic attacks. She would lock herself in the bathroom for hours. The children would knock on the door asking for her, and she would only cry on the other side. Sebastian asked me if Mum was sick. I didn't know how to answer him. "And you didn't look for help? A psychiatrist?" "I tried, but she refuses. She says the medication will turn her into a zombie, that she can do it on her own. But she can't, Mum. She gets worse every day." I saw tears in my son's eyes. Her family distanced themselves from her. When her mum found out about everything she had done to me, the debt, how she treated you, she stopped talking to her. Her sisters, too. They say Megan was always problematic, but that this was the last straw. Oh, son. And the worst part is that she knows it. She knows she's alone. She knows she burned all her bridges, and that is consuming her inside. Robert looked at me with desperation. "I don't know what to do, Mum. The children suffer seeing her like this. I suffer seeing her like this. But when I try to help her, she rejects me. She tells me that I don't deserve to carry her burden, that I'm too good for someone like her." "Do you still love her?" "I don't know. Sometimes I think I do. Other times I think I just feel sorry for her, and I feel awful for thinking that." I hugged him, feeling him tremble. Give it time, son. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can climb up. But deep down, I knew Megan had already hit rock bottom, and she was sinking further. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Sebastian. It was a Friday night. Grandma, can you come over? Please. Mum is very sick. What happened? She's locked in her room. She hasn't come out in 2 days. Dad is working and not answering his phone. I'm scared. I'm on my way. I took a taxi and arrived at the apartment 20 minutes later. Sebastian opened the door for me, his eyes red from crying so much. Valerie was curled up on the couch, hugging a cushion. She's in her room, Sebastian whispered. I walked down the hall and knocked on the door. Megan, it's Eleanor. Can you open up for me? Silence. Megan, the children are scared. Please. I heard movement on the other side. Then the door slowly opened. What I saw broke my heart. Megan was on the floor, her back against the wall. Her hair was greasy, dishevelled, her clothes wrinkled, dirty, and those eyes, those empty eyes that Mrs. Charlotte had described. I knelt in front of her. Oh, honey, don't call me honey, she whispered in a broken voice. I'm not your daughter. I'm the one who wanted to destroy you. That's already in the past. No, it's not in the past. It's never going to be in the past. Because every time I look in the mirror, I see a monster. I see someone who was capable of throwing a sick woman onto the street. How do I live with that, Eleanor? How? Tears were streaming down her face, but she didn't even wipe them away. My own mother won't talk to me. My sisters blocked me from their phones. At work, before I quit, I heard my co-workers talking about me. They said I was a snake, that how could I have treated my mother-in-law like that? And they were right. Megan, don't defend me. Please, I don't deserve it. She hugged her knees, making herself small. Robert pretends that everything is fine, but I know he's thinking about leaving me. Sometimes I see him looking at me with an expression that terrifies me, as if he no longer recognizes me, as if he is wondering who he married. He loves you. He pities me, which is not the same thing. She was silent for a few seconds. And the children? God, the children look at me differently. Before I was their hero. Now I don't know what I am. Sebastian asked me the other day if I was mean. Do you know what it feels like for your own son to ask you if you're mean? She covered her face with her hands, sobbing. I once called you a burden. I treated you like you were a nuisance. And now I'm the burden. I'm the nuisance. Life has a very cruel sense of humour. I sat next to her on the floor, leaning against the wall. Do you know what the worst part of all this is? She continued. That I can't blame anyone but myself. I made those decisions. I planted those seeds. And now I'm eating the bitter fruit of what I sowed. We stayed like that, in silence, two women sitting on the floor of a dark room. Finally, I spoke. Megan, look at me. She looked up. Yes, life collects its debts. It always does. Not as punishment, but as balance. But do you know what else life does? It gives you opportunities to start over, if you allow it. It's too late for me. No, as long as you are breathing, it's not too late. But you made terrible mistakes. Yes. And what are you going to do now? Are you going to stay here, sinking into your guilt, destroying the little you have left? Or are you going to get up and fight for your family? I don't know if I can. Of course you can, but you need professional help, medication if necessary. constant therapy, and above all, you need to forgive yourself. How do I forgive myself? How? By being better every day, by showing your children that their mum made mistakes, but that she is capable of changing, of growing, of being brave. Megan looked at me with those empty eyes, looking for something to hold on to. Do you think Robert can ever see me like he did before? I don't know, but I know that if you stay like this, he definitely won't. The only way to get anything back is by fighting for it. I got up with difficulty and held out my hand. Come, let's get you up. Let's get you showered, get you something to eat. And tomorrow we're going to find a psychiatrist. She hesitated. Why are you helping me? After everything? Because those children in the living room need their mum. And because, believe it or not, I was also a broken woman once. And someone held out their hand to me when I needed it most. Megan took my hand and stood up, stumbling. I helped her get to the bathroom. I gave her clean clothes. While she was showering, I went into the living room with the children. Is Mum going to be okay, Grandma? Valerie asked in a scared little voice. Yes, my love. She's going to be okay. She just needs help. And we're all going to help her. Sebastian hugged me tightly. Thank you for coming, Grandma. I will always come when you need me. When Megan came out of the bathroom, she looked a little better. Still with those tired eyes, but at least clean. I sat with her in the kitchen while she ate some soup I prepared. Eleanor, there's something you need to know, she said quietly. Tell me. 2 weeks ago I went to the hospital. I was having such a bad panic attack that I thought I was going to die. Robert was working. The children were at school. I called an Uber and went alone. She took a sip of water. They left me alone in a waiting room for hours, sitting in that cold chair, watching doctors and nurses walk by who didn't even look at me. And at that moment, I remembered you, when you left the hospital with your bandages, in pain, vulnerable, and I threw your suitcase onto the street. Her hands trembled. I was sitting there, feeling completely alone, completely invisible. And I understood. I understood exactly how I had made you feel. Not with words, not with ideas. I felt it in my own flesh. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Life always collects its debts, doesn't it? And I paid mine by feeling exactly the same as I made you feel. I didn't say anything. I just took her hand. Now I understand why people talk about karma, she continued. It's not divine punishment. It's simply the natural consequence of our actions. I planted cruelty and I harvested loneliness. It's as simple and as painful as that. She finished her soup in silence. Do you really think I can get out of this? She finally asked me. Yes, but it's going to hurt. It's going to require hard work, brutal honesty with yourself, and a lot of patience. Are you willing? Megan took a deep breath. Yes, for my children, for Robert, and for me, because I don't want to be this person anymore. That night I stayed in the apartment until Robert arrived. I explained everything to him. He hugged me, grateful. Thank you, Mum, for being a better person than any of us deserve. It's not about deserving, son. It's about choosing love, always. When I left, I looked back and saw Megan in the window, no longer with that empty gaze, but with something that dangerously resembled hope. And I understood that true justice is not seeing the person who hurt us suffer. It is seeing how life teaches them the lessons they needed to learn, and being there to offer them a hand when they are finally ready to get up. Because that is what makes us human. That is what makes us wise. And that wisdom no one can take away from me. 8 months have passed since that night in Megan's apartment. It's a November morning, and I'm sitting in my kitchen preparing my brewed coffee. The aroma of the cinnamon and the brown sugar fills the house, and while I wait for it to boil, I look out the window at the garden that Michael and I planted so many years ago. The bougainvillea is blooming, purple, bright, full of life. I hear laughter outside. It's Sebastian and Valerie playing in the yard. It's Saturday, and like every weekend, they are here with me. But this time there is something different. Megan came too. She is sitting on the garden bench, watching her children play. She looks different. She is not the Megan from before, the one who always had everything under control, but she is not the broken woman I found on the floor of her room either. She is someone new, someone more real. She has been in treatment for 6 months, medication for anxiety, therapy twice a week, a support group on Thursdays. Robert tells me that some days are difficult, that she has relapses, but that she is fighting, that she is trying, and that is more than many people do. I pour 2 cups of coffee and go out to the garden. "Do you mind if I sit down?" I ask her. She looks up, surprised, and then smiles. A small smile, but genuine. "Of course not. It's your house." "It's our house," I correct her. "As long as you're here, it's yours too." We stayed in silence for a few minutes, watching the children chase butterflies among the flowers. "Thank you," Megan says suddenly, "for everything." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do, because after everything I did to you, you were the one who saved me. Literally. Robert doesn't know what would have happened." She takes a sip of coffee. "And you didn't just come that night. You've been there every time I've fallen, every time I've had a crisis. When my own family turned their backs on me, you held out your hand. Everyone deserves a second chance. Some people don't give it, and you had every right not to give it to me." I look her in the eyes. "Megan, can I tell you something?" "Sure." "When Michael died, 12 years ago, I was left completely alone. My children had their own lives, my sister lived far away, my friends were busy with their own families, and I felt invisible, as if I no longer mattered." I take a sip of my coffee. "One night, I was so sad that I thought I couldn't go on. I called Robert, but he didn't answer. He was on his honeymoon with you, and I felt so guilty for bothering him, for existing, that I promised myself that I would never be a burden to anyone again." Megan looks at me with bright eyes. "From that day on, I started making myself small, disappearing, not asking for anything, not expecting anything. And when you all came to live here, I was so grateful not to be alone that I slowly let you take everything away from me, my space, my voice, my dignity. Eleanor, but you know what? What you did to me, even though it was painful, taught me something I had forgotten, that I also matter, that my life has value, that I don't have to make myself invisible to be loved." Tears stream down my cheeks. "So in a way, you gave me a gift. You forced me to remember who I am, to defend myself, to not accept less than what I deserve." Megan is openly crying now. "I can't believe you find something good in what I did to you." "I'm not saying what you did was right, but I'm saying that even from the most painful experiences, we can gain wisdom. And I gained a lot." Sebastian runs toward us. "Grandma, can I have some water?" "Of course, my love. It's in the refrigerator." When he leaves, Megan speaks. "I learned too. I learned that control is not power, that cruelty does not make you strong, that you can win all the battles and still lose the war." She looks up at the sky. "And I learned that life always collects what is owed. I made you feel invisible, and life made me feel exactly the same. I threw you out onto the street when you were vulnerable, and life threw me to the floor when I was broken. Karma is not a punishment. It's a teacher, a very tough teacher, but necessary, because now I understand things I didn't understand before. Now I value things I took for granted before, like my family, like the kindness of a woman who had every right to hate me and chose to love me instead. We stayed in silence, drinking our coffee, watching the bougainvillea move with the wind. Robert comes out of the house with a bag of donuts. Does anyone want glazed donuts? The children shout excitedly and run toward him. Megan smiles, watching them. A tired smile, but full of love. I'm going to help them, she says, getting up. When she walks away, Robert sits next to me. How do you think she's doing, Mum? Better, much better. She still has bad days, but the good days are becoming more frequent. That's how healing is, son. It's not a straight line. It's a road with ups and downs. Robert hugs me. Thank you for not giving up on her. On us. Family doesn't give up. Family grows together. Later, when everyone leaves, I am left alone in my house again. But this time the loneliness doesn't hurt. It feels like peace. I prepare another cup of coffee and sit on the couch in the living room. The blue armchair that I recovered a few months ago when Megan helped me look for it. The person who had bought it was selling it, and between the three of us, Megan, Mrs. Charlotte, and I, we put together the money to bring it back. Now it's here, in its place, as if it had never left. I sit down and close my eyes, letting the memories flow. Michael, the young children, the laughter, the tears, the good years and the difficult ones, the illness, the loneliness, the humiliation, the pain, the justice, the forgiveness. Everything was part of the same path. And now, at my 68 years of age, I finally understand something that took me a lifetime to learn. We cannot control what others do to us. We cannot prevent life from hurting us. But we can control who we are in the midst of the pain. We can choose resentment or forgiveness. We can choose to make ourselves small or stand firm. We can choose revenge or healing. And I chose to heal not only myself, but also the person who hurt me. Because true strength is not in hitting back. It is in extending a hand when no one else would. That night, before sleeping, I write in my diary, something I hadn't done in years. Dear diary, today I realized that my life was not perfect. I made mistakes. I kept quiet when I should have spoken. I made myself small when I should have stood tall, but I also did many things right. I loved with all my heart. I built a home. I raised good children. I forgave the unforgivable. I got up when I was knocked down, and now, at the end of this story, I can say with peace, it was worth it. Every tear, every pain, every difficult moment was worth it. Because they brought me here, to this place of wisdom and peace. If someone reads this someday, I want them to know. No matter how dark the night gets, there is always a sunrise waiting. No matter how far you fall, you can always get up. And no matter who hurts you, you can always choose to heal. That choice is yours. It will always be yours. With love, Eleanor. I close the diary and look at Michael's photograph on my dresser. We did it, love. In our own way. With stumbles and falls. But we did it. I turn off the light and fall asleep with a smile. Because I know that tomorrow I will get up again. I will make my brewed coffee. I will water my bougainvillea. I will wait for my grandchildren. And I will continue to live this life that cost me so much to recover. A life where I finally know my worth. A life where I am no longer afraid to take my place. A life that is completely, absolutely mine. If my story helped a single woman open her eyes, find her voice, remember her worth, then every moment of pain will have been worth it. Thank you for listening to me until the end, for accompanying me on this journey from darkness to light. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on the notification bell to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change an entire day. It can remind someone that they are not alone, that they can get up, that they deserve dignity and respect. God bless you, and until next time.